Okay, everybody. Susan Asadi here. I'm the executive director of the Global Chamber New York City, and we're here to help leaders like you increase retention and reduce toxic environment among your teams. So, if you're not familiar, like maybe John, there are several people who know the Global Chamber. Just very briefly, wanted to share with you. Global Chamber New York City is one of 607 chapters now. We're around the world and we support export import in the FDI community. We focus on doing events like today, doing connectivity, intentional trust connecting, and we use our AI platform Globi to simplify that growth. Did I hear somebody commenting? Okay. As I mentioned, we focus on doing warm introductions. We do events like today. We help you expand your markets for your businesses. And if you are trying to expand your company into one of our 607 markets worldwide, we help you with that soft landing. Who we serve are service providers, investors in the ecosystem, and exporters, as I mentioned earlier. Activities that we do for the Global Chamber New York City include this field trip we took to the Port of New York, New Jersey, where many of our members gathered, and we learned about how shipping moves through one of the biggest seaports in the world. So, without further ado, I want to give some introductions, but wanted to let you know if you would join our chapter, we're in 200 countries, it would give you exposure to about 20,000 members. So, what I'd like to do now is introduce our three speakers, and each one of them will speak for 15 minutes. We're going to follow with a Q&A. And however, if during the presentation you have any questions, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we will do our best to get to your questions as quickly as possible. So Stacy Mandeville, smiling and waving, is an actor turned leadership trainer and the founder of the Mandeville Method. Since 1999, she's helped leaders strengthen communication, emotional intelligence, and presence through practice-based training that creates behavior change, not just insight. She brings a highly practical lens to leadership development, helping people get out of their heads and focus on the people in front of them. Carla Watt, who's going to wave now with her title there, is a seasoned sales performance partner with years of experience building, scaling, and revitalizing sales teams in the UK. She specializes in helping businesses sell smarter, manage better, and keep the human element at the heart of sales. She's known for transforming underperforming teams into high-performing, motivated units. Carla blends strategic process with the art of authentic communication. She works with businesses at every stage. She brings a unique perspective on the differences between the US and UK markets and why some approaches simply won't land with British buyers. And last but certainly not least is Manal Joshi-Yakli. She joins us from Switzerland. She's the CEO and founder of Open Elevator, a workforce analytics platform that gives leaders early visibilities into retention risks so turnover never comes as a surprise. She works with CEOs and executive teams who sense when something is shifting beneath the surface of their organizations but lack clear proof. She's also the author of a book, The Goldilocks Team, Master Retention and Hiring, where she explores why teams succeed or fail. So, with that introduction, I'm going to turn first to Stacy. So, Stacy, what's the top source of toxicity and why people have retention issues?
Mhm. Well, Susan and everybody, it's no surprise to anyone. We live in interesting times. And without going deep into that, we all know that leadership has to be laser focused even more than ever on vision, strategy, keeping up with the markets, pivoting into the wind of the next geopolitical snag, hyper focused, of course, on leveraging AI, tech, better, stronger, faster than the next company. Now, what's happening is leadership and employee relationships, they're kind of getting put on the back burner. We're like, we're strategy, KPIs, and human stuff. And we don't have time for that. Employees behind their backs are blaming the leaders, and leaders behind their backs and sometimes to their face are blaming employees. Um, I work with a lot of leaders, and these are actually things I've heard leaders say about their employees. They are constantly asking for help. They're not, do they even know how to do the job? They are lazy, unproductive, disengaged, checked out, poor performers who lack loyalty and don't take feedback or criticism. And my favorite, no one wants to work anymore. Okay. No one in the history of working has ever really wanted to work, but you can get motivated. Um, and the funny thing is, we all know the old saying about how stuff rolls downhill, right? Um, Culture comes from the top. So when leaders are blaming employees and not focusing on themselves, that might be a disconnect. Not saying the employees are not to blame sometimes, but we need to start looking at the leaders. Retention issues like this are signals that your team is sending out to you as a leader. It's kind of an SOS, letting you know, hey, the culture might be toxic here. People are crazy stressed out, especially now. They are burnt out and they're probably not being heard by leadership. And not all leaders are like this, but a lot of the ones I work with are having these problems. And I'm here to say that no surprise, people work harder and stay longer for leaders who understand them, listen to them, and God, I hate to say it, care about them. I know this from my own experience. I have been through all different kinds of jobs, and the ones where I am supported and guided and cared for, I will crawl on my belly over broken glass. And people that don't, you get less from me. So I speak from experience. Now, when I'm working with leaders and business owners, and I hear these kinds of blaming behaviors, I always start by getting them to stop blaming for just a second, put that over here, and look at themselves. What signals physically, vocally, emotionally are you putting out there that your employees might be reacting to? What are you doing to motivate, inspire, and pull them towards the company vision? Or conversely, what are you doing that might be pushing them away from that? A question I love to ask. Why would your team want to be led by you, specifically you? What are you actively doing? And sometimes this takes leaders aback a little bit. Like, well, yes, they, but let's look at you for a second. And this point of view switch often can be a big step for leaders who are very powerful. Obviously, I could talk to you for hours and hours about how to make this switch happen. And it is what I do in my training workshops. But there are 3 strategies that you can start using today. And if you have questions about anything I'm talking about, it might be how to use these strategies. And I'm open to those. First strategy, it's a mindset shift. Shift your mindset from I to you. There's all the things that I, as the leader, the manager, I want you to do this. I need this to happen. I have to have this strategy. I have to see KPIs. I have to use AI. So just turn that around. Look at the people in your neighborhood and say to yourself, what do you need to do what I need you to do? What do you need to feel valued, productive, happy, safe? Why can't the workplace be a safe space in a crazy world? I don't know. Shift your mindset. The second it's the second step of this. You are getting out of your head, out of I, out of your head, and look, listen. What is your team signaling to you with their body language, their voice, how they speak up or shut down? Is a high performer who always used to have great ideas all of a sudden disengaged? That's SOS, SOS. Someone who is always happy and kind of easygoing, are they staying in their cubicle with their heads down? SOS. But you have to open your blinders and walk the floor. Yeah, I know that takes time, but it's worth it. And then lastly, really focusing on yourself now. Be deliberate in what you are signaling to your team with your voice, your body, your energy, your tone. Stop talking, start asking while checking yourself. Um, I worked with a leader. This individual was, from the minute I met them, chip on the shoulder. Just everything was that was the whole energy. And it's like, well, why can't they do the job? I give them feedback. Like, well, if you're giving them feedback with that energy, that might be a disconnect. So you need to check your triggers. And let's face it, we're all triggered. The things that are triggering your team might also be triggering you, but it is your job as the leader to do some breathing and check your signals. Now, these used to be called soft skills. And everyone I say that to, I do soft skills. They go, no, it shouldn't be called that. Right. Soft skills are hitting different now. They hit harder. They're more concrete. They're no longer being viewed as a fluffy, nice to have thing that you do at a retreat, trust falls, build a Lego house, and then you forget about it when you go back to the office. Soft skills, human connection is no longer optional. They are mandatory, paramount skills that can make or break your team's productivity, your customer relationships, your vendor relationships, and all of that impacts your profits when you're thinking about how much it costs you every time someone pulls back, quiet quits, doesn't give their all. Every time you have to fire somebody because they're a bad fit, that's costing you. I don't do math. I'll let you do the math, but you know that it's impacting profits. So human skills and emotional intelligence are a business advantage in this VUCA environment, and they are 100% worth investing in, as the sooner the better. And that's my spiel.
Thank you, Stacy. You really grounded us in why this matters and how leaders' emotional intelligence sets the tone for everything else. And certainly in this world, we have so much AI, people are like, okay, where does the human come in? I even noticed our president's wife has a humanoid AI figure working with her. Anyway,
I have the whole AI versus keeping grounded in humanity. That's a whole other topic. Don't get me started. I'm going to turn my mic off and stop.
okay, well, we'll come back to that later. And if not, people can reach out to you on that topic. So, Carla, once leaders understand that their energy and behavior shape the culture, how do great leaders turn that awareness into an environment where people actually want to stay and perform at their best?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I just want to reiterate, obviously, what Stacey has just said, because she does that exercise of the part that I do a little bit of, but she does that part far better than I do. So, and when she says she doesn't do the math, I do the math. I'll come along and do the math. I'll come along and look at your numbers. So my background is obviously more sales, so more teams in sales, which is an incredibly hard job, but it still goes across with people initially. And it's more about leadership and consistency and setting expectations. And I use a methodology called gapology. Without going too far into it, you can look this up. It's a very good method to use. And it is about expectations that are set by leadership. Because every time I go into a company, what I do see is leadership say pretty much what Stacey's been saying. They won't do this. I give feedback, blah, 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 blah. And by the time I've gone in and looked at the numbers and said, well, have we covered all of this training? Have we covered the induction? Have we covered this? Everything starts retention. You shouldn't really be having a retention conversation. You should be having a conversation before you even hire. So it starts from hiring, it starts from onboarding, it starts from keeping everything documented. So when I say I'm more do the math, I do the data as well. So because when you have leaders that have such large companies and so many people to look after, you can't necessarily get to the human element, but you do need it. But you also need to record everything you've given these people. So setting expectations. The amount of companies I've walked into, and like Stacey said, the leaders are going, no, they won't do this, they won't do this. But then I say other leaders on a completely the different scale that just goes, well, I've given you everything, just get on with it. And I'm going, but where's the expectations? Where's the KPIs? And oh, they'll do it. And it's way too fluffy. So there's a balance. And it's too scared to say anything to employees because some leaders are so grateful that they're just coming in to help them sell, so it kind of works both ways. So when I go into companies, it is more of a case of, right, we will look at the hiring, we will look at the onboarding, and there will be a proper onboarding structure. And it will be making sure that we have trained them not only in the product and everything that they need to know, but the company culture, expectations. So if you look at Gapology, it will cover things like, have you given them the vision? Have you given them the tools to do the vision? Have you given them the tools to do this? Now, all of that, if everything on there is ticked as a yes as a company, that I provided this, so you set your standards, I provide this to the employees that are coming on board, and if they can't cope with this or they can't do this, then they're not the right fit for the company. And you should be able to ascertain that within 3 months, within a probation period, if you've got this done correctly, if you've onboarded. But I'm also a stickler for continuing conversations. Most people will then onboard, lead them to it, talk to them maybe when the figures aren't working, when something else isn't working, is usually the only time that they have a conversation. When really, you should be having those conversations much easier, much closer, much more humanized as well, to say, well, but also document it. So document the discussion so you've got no ambiguities going on at all. So somebody says, well, you haven't trained me in this. Well, when I go in and train you, I get you to sign it off. So I've got a HR piece of paper that says, actually, I did. And you agreed to it, that I did, So, and when you've got 50 or hundreds of employees sat in front of you, you need that documentation in front of you to say, well, we did cover this. You did sign this off. But also, it also puts it back onto the leadership to say, I haven't done this for you. You're quite right. I haven't done this for you. Let me go and do this for you now. I'm sorry about that. And have those open conversations. It goes both ways. It's got to be a two-way street. So if you don't set expectations from the very beginning, you put, with anything, you put flakiness in at the beginning, you get flaky results. You put a lot in the beginning, you get better results. But you also get people to look at themselves and think, this is not the right company for me. And sometimes having that conversation, rather than going down the firing road, I call it the step up, off, step off. I'll write a program, so you'll either step up or you'll step off. We will get you to that position, and we'll give you everything you need to get to that position. And you'll suddenly either realize that you're going to push yourself to get there, or you're not going to want to do this, and you won't want to be in the room with everybody else that is doing that. Because in a sales environment, you do not want to be sat there with everybody else flying, and because it's not a nice feeling at all. So that will save leaders a lot of money, because your ROI on that then, because the second you start any process of onboarding anybody, it's a major cost to a company. So I would always advocate recording everything, absolutely recording everything. Hold yourself accountable, but also hold your employees accountable as well. It's all about expectation and making sure that you're completely aligned with that.
Okay, thank you, Carla. I love that. We're talking about measurement versus guessing what's going on. And I assume you have tools that you would share with any individual companies that are interested in working with you. We're going to share your information later. Yeah.
Absolutely. I always will go with the measure versus guesswork. Guesswork gets you nowhere. Keeps you guessing, makes you wonder why. You've got anything measured at all. You've got the data sat in front of you. Numbers don't lie. So signatures don't lie. If you're both sat in those rooms together having those conversations, they don't lie at all. And it also helps with having this all sat with HR as well. It should be really involved with this, so it can take it away from the leader as well. Take all that extra work away from you, document it, give it to HR. If issues start coming up, then, and like you say, you start seeing those numbers come down, or you start seeing somebody not performing, and you're reading the paperwork that you already have, and it's not, and you've done everything and they've done everything, then it could be a completely different issue. So don't always assume that they're just not engaged anymore. You just don't know. Ask the question, go and speak to them. And that's where the human element comes into it, because you never know if somebody's just lost somebody. You never know if somebody's just having a bad day, or somebody just needs that extra support that just, and to give that to an employer, it creates loyalty, it creates trust, it creates being seen, you know. And without that documentation in front of you to say, oh, this is where we are with this employee at the moment, how can you have those conversations?
Okay, well, okay. Here we get to the real nitty gritty with Manal on the measurement. So once leaders are committing the right culture and performance expectations, how do they actually measure what's working, spot retention risk early, and make better hiring and retention decisions using data? So Manal.
Yeah, so more math talk now. Um, so even great leaders fly blind without visibility. So data is what turns good intent into early action. And as Stacy and Carla said, leadership behavior matters deeply. But here's the problem. The root is that most leaders don't lose people because they don't care. They lose people because risk stays invisible until it's too late. By the time someone resigns, disengagement has usually been building quietly for months. Think about it from your own experience. When you said, I'm leaving, when you already had a job, when was it that you decided to look for another job? So retention is actually a lagging indicator. So what's actually broken? Leaders already sense when something is off, but sensing is not the same as seeing data. Most organizations rely on engagement surveys, dashboards, and exit interviews. These tools tell you what happened. They don't tell you what's about to happen. So the real issue isn't retention, it's visibility. And because of that, leaders are forced to guess. They're forced to guess where to intervene, which teams need attention, who thrive or struggle. Those decisions are failure, visibility gap. And you can't act early on what you can't see. Now, here's what changes when leaders do have visibility. Conversations happen earlier, they're calmer, less defensive, and far more effective. Interventions become targeted instead of reactive. And importantly, data doesn't replace leadership judgment. It supports it, especially in emotionally charged situations. Now, to be clear, no system predicts human behavior with certainty, but patterns are highly reliable. Leaders don't need certainty to act early. They need direction, prioritization, and confidence that they're focusing in the right places. And this applies to both retention and hiring, because poor fit doesn't show up as engagement. It doesn't show up as disengagement. It shows up as turnover. So most hiring mistakes are invisible until they become expensive. So retention and hiring are actually the same problem, just seen at different moments in time. Visibility turns good leadership into timely leadership. So if you don't currently have visibility into where retention risk is forming in your team, that's usually where the most important conversations need to start.
Well, I just wondered if anyone in the audience at this moment has questions for one of any of our three speakers to make it concrete to your business.
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
It's for John. If John would like to answer a question for me, just to help me out. John, obviously you mentioned that you were in the hospitality. Just from a hospitality aspect and from what you've heard today, is there anything that you would implement or anything that you do? I don't know too much about the hospitality, but I understand a lot. It's probably quite similar to what I do anyway. So I think when you mentioned that, I was quite interested just to hear an aspect from your thoughts. John Oldweller?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
So,
I didn't want to just put you on the spot, but you know, when you come along,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
No, please ask me the question again.
So I noticed you mentioned earlier on that you're in hospitality.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking from what you've heard today, is there any elements that you do in hospitality that you've noticed that have changed?
So we're my business. We're in the industry, obviously, and we service chefs and owners of restaurants to help them manage their supplier relationships through the action of procurement. So we have a pretty small business, and so I practice leadership, and I come away from this conversation kind of with the understanding that a lot of people, perhaps in leadership, don't practice leadership, right? So, and some of Stacy's comments are like kind of shocking to me. Like, people are that they're so kind of removed from their impact of how people respond to working for them and the culture of the companies. So I guess in trying to fine tune things a little bit more for people that are actively considerate or thinking that they are. And I think this is perhaps a gap between, leaders and what their employees perceive them to be as leaders. How do you close that gap, or what would be a good way to close the gap for us as a small business? We're not really in a place where we would make a recommendation to owners of restaurants on how they should lead their teams, other than they should support our product because it'll help their team be more efficient. But in our own business, how do you close the gap between somebody who believes they're really being considerate and maybe applying the kind of the 5-to-1 ratio of constructive feedback versus critical feedback to take a point.
I can address that a little bit. There's a really interesting book called The Power Paradox. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. It's a little bit of a dry read, but the information is sound. And there is science behind the statement that power corrupts. And, the more power, the more corruption, which is why a lot of our audiences here at the Global Chamber hear the things that we're saying and think, well, I'm not doing that, because you're still in empathy, you're still in compassion because you're not so big. And these leaders that I've worked with, I've actually had one of them say to me, Stacy, how do I get my teams to stop talking to me? I'm busy. I'm walking on the factory floor and they all want a piece of me and I'm busy. Right. So this is the power paradox. These these high power folks, there is science. They scanned brains of regular Joes and high powered people. And the high powered people have a decreased mirroring section in their brain, which is the seat of empathy. You begin to literally lose your ability to put yourself in the other guy's shoes because you're just too powerful. You don't need other people's opinions. You become very risk tolerant. And the only way to combat that, use it or lose it. Actively, that I versus you. Get into your office and have it in a banner on your wall. I versus you. Get out of my head. It's not about me. And start talking to people. Talk to the Starbucks barista. Talk to your kids. Talk to your cat. And it's silly and soft skills, but look it up, The Power Paradox. Very interesting. Oh, Terry, thank you. Terry put the link in.
Stacy, so I would like to offer you a different perspective, okay? So, so in a forum like this, of course, you're hearing, I'm going to sound like not the not nice person. So in doing this, well, first of all, I want to say most of my clients, I kind of look at it like most people who have a gym membership and on top of that hire a personal trainer, they're probably likely to be in pretty good shape already. So frankly, I want to tell you that I love my clients. I love the managers I work with. And I sometimes feel like I'm more speaking to them to say, be kinder to yourself, because they do want their employees to like them. So I don't have this manager experience across the board that says all of them don't care and are this superpower authoritarian. I don't have that experience. So I want to tell you that. Next, I want to say that I've been doing this for more than a decade, and I can tell you that I call it that I meet two types of managers, and I call it the two Steves, Steve Jobs and Steve, Steve Carell from The Office. And Steve Carell wants to walk his employees down the aisle. And Steve Jobs, I imagine, if he ever asked an employee how their weekend was, regretted it immediately when that person started rambling on. So the thing is, though, I don't think either is a wrong style. The point is that for every type of management style, there is going to be somebody that it resonates with and others who it doesn't resonate with, just like culture, just like everything else. So to have this blanket statement that we all need to be X and Y and Z, which is not, that's extrapolating a little too far into what Stacey's saying. Stacey's very smart. She isn't saying that, but I want to be a bit more, a lot more tolerant into saying managers don't need to also go into work and turn into pretzels that fit every employee that there is, because just like most of us don't change for our spouses, our parents, our kids. So it's a pretty high bar to ask managers go in and start changing for their employees. What my company does with a great deal of passion is we try to have people on both sides at the end of the day want to have some success for whatever reason. It could be their ego, it could be their wallet, it could be whatever. You know what? Without judgment, whatever reason people show up in the organization, they want to have a team that they can collaborate with easily. And for the team member who works with you well and delivers for you consistently, that person might say, hey, I need to be gone because my mother is sick for 3 weeks. And you're going to say, okay. And for the person who never delivers and that this afternoon they want to take a long lunch for whatever reason, you're not even going to have the stamina to hear out their reason. It is both of you said it, Carla and Stacey, it's a two-way street. It's not about fixing all bad bosses, because I don't think there is such a thing. It's, we don't fat shame, we don't age shame, but we can still manager and boss shame. And honestly, it's not productive. What is productive is helping people find that alignment, because when there is alignment, it's a smoother collaboration. And when there's not alignment, that turns into disengagement and that turns into turnover. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, do we have
I
any
think I'll throw
other
my
questions? Go ahead, Carla. Sorry.
I was just going to throw my little 2 pence in there just to answer your question. So going back to what you were saying, obviously from you're saying your business is quite a small business, and I know we're talking about probably more of the bigger corporate companies going ahead. But for smaller businesses, I do think it's from what you're saying, getting your product into your customers and then explaining to them how these people are, how to produce, and they're not listening. It is an education. It's really more of an education role, because most people that have small businesses, I have a sales background. So when I go into companies, if you've never worked in sales or corporate sales and suddenly it's the biggest engine of your business to try and get that going, and you've never had that before, that does kind of keep you a bit tunnel vision as well. So it's like, I go in and educate them and say, look at the bigger picture here. This is where we have to go. So if you do something quite similar with your customer, the people that you're procuring to go into these places, you can always give them the advice of, they've come from this area, they've got these skills and this background, this is how they've been dealt with before, and then maybe try and open them up to have a look to see how they can produce and work predominantly well with their teams as well. So it is maybe just like passing on that baton, because a lot of people, like you say, start up a business and all of us have, and then you don't realize just exactly what you've got into, and then when you get into it and then you're halfway down there, you do become a bit tunnel vision. So it is a case of just education at the same time.
Okay, Christopher, go ahead.
Yes, this has been great, and I always learn so much at these meetings. I look at I'm an executive English language coach, and I work with speaking, writing, and accent. So I'm looking at this from a smaller picture. I've been hearing about in this meeting about how the various pieces of a company's fit together, which is what I think management is. But I work more with the content of the actual pieces. And what I've seen is one of the main pieces that people have trouble with is speaking English well. and expressing themselves well. Because if you're not comfortable in English, if you're in an English speaking environment, you can't show your talents, and you always have a frustration. I have as you can hear, a slight stutter. And so I know what it is like to have a frustration to express yourself. And I think people's ability to speak English and to put their thoughts in good, coherent order so they can put their point of view across. A lot of people don't have that skill, and they're going to be defensive and unhappy. And if that piece isn't working, this bigger putting the pieces together also is not going to work. So that's what I see from where I sit.
Thank you, Christopher. Do Stacy, Manal, or Carla have anything to comment back to Christopher on
I
this?
would, yes, I would. I would totally agree with that. It is being able to find the right words, because sometimes you can deliver something, you can say the right words, but you can totally deliver it in a way that's taken the wrong way. So I think it is a case of what he's saying: keep yourself calm, make sure it's delivered, always have the good intentions there, because you just never know how those words are going to be taken. And it's incredibly difficult, though, when you are, as we were saying, that really busy boss running down wherever he is, with employees wanting a piece of him, and he just doesn't want the noise. Nobody wants the noise. It's a hard environment to then suddenly be able to center yourself. So make the right space for that to happen.
I would second that. I cut my teeth as a communication skills public speaking trainer. For 12 years, I worked at Merck Pharmaceuticals, helping high brain chemical engineers and scientists deliver messages clearly and cleanly without looking nervous in front of the CEO and the C-suite. And um, it's why I talk about being deliberate. They go in and I'm a scientist and I'm in my head and I want to tell you all the data and I want to talk really fast and blah, versus knowing that about yourself and then choosing, okay, what does the CEO need to hear? And how do they need to hear it? And what can I do to practice doing that as effectively as possible so that I get what I want, which is approval for the next stage in the clinical trial, right? But it is choice versus habit. And I know this from experience, because when I started, I was an insane person. I was not corporate. I was not professional. I was an actress, and I talked really fast, and it was a mess. And I got some feedback about that. And I had to look within myself and make some corrections. What do I need to do to make a high-level chemical engineer, baby boomer, scientist see me as credible? And that's, I'm still here. So yeah, so I agree. It's hard. It's hard, though. It's very hard.
It is, but it's also taking the chance of taking that feedback and doing something with it. It's the case of, if you don't do something with it, your results are always going to be the same.
Okay, so I wanted to ask the three of you, Manal, Stacy, and Carla, do you have a top takeaway for our audience today, the leaders in this room, that you would like to share?
I would just reiterate what I said earlier: measure over guesswork. You can't go wrong. Data doesn't lie.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. There's not as much of a retention problem as there is a visibility problem. And when you see what's forming, you're able to address it.
I would say that, and I wrote it in the chat earlier, uh, we are a triumvirate of fearsome retention. You have data at the beginning, setting expectations in the onboarding with data. Then you have the meat in the middle, keeping people on track with that by empathy, compassion, watching them, being part of the team, not above it. Whether you're a manager and still have EQ, or you are the actual CEO with visionary things you need to take care of, keeping in touch. And then the final piece is Manal. We have Open Elevator with the touchstone for you to check yourself. Is the onboarding data and the active leadership working? So you've got data, and you've got a little bit of squishy human love in the middle.
Okay, so I'd like to sort of turn it back to the people who attended, even if you came in a bit late. I wonder what takeaway you've gleaned from this session, and what will you do to increase retention and maximize the collaboration of your teams? Doug, maybe you can start. I know you have a big team of people around the world. Is there anything that you were able to hear that you're going to take away from this meeting?
I actually thought it was interesting the commentary about the different leadership styles and the fact that there, to some extent there's no right or wrong, there are differences, but the key we manage a team that is across 9 different countries, and that team I'm still learning every day. I'm learning there are different cultural styles and factors that we need to take into account. So we actually just initiated a restructuring of our project delivery to help balance out the project management responsibilities, because some of our team members, from a cultural perspective, are not in their comfort level with demanding something from an American client is very low. I mean, plenty of Americans have a hard time demanding something from an American client. I mean, that's not just about culture. That's also about seniority, life experience, all those factors. So we decided to reverse course. We had originally envisioned specifically a model in which project management and service delivery were the same team, because we didn't want there to be an air gap, if you will, between the two sides. And we determined that while that makes sense on paper, operationally it's problematic because we're putting too much psychological responsibility in one person. It's not functional responsibility. They can handle the work. It's psychological responsibility. They find themselves conflicted. So that really is something that I wouldn't have figured out. I mean, I've been in Slack channels. Hey, why isn't this going? Why didn't you tell why didn't? And I finally realized instead of barking, I should be listening and understanding what's going on. Because I guess sometimes I can be either Steve, depending on the time of day and the coffee level running through my veins. And so recognizing the root issues, we're actually in the middle, like literally as I speak, of a process change to accommodate and better capture the talent of our people so that we do retain them. Because the model that we had, we would lose some of our key people because it's psychologically not aligned with what they're comfortable with. And obviously part of our job as employers is to push people past their boundaries, certainly, within reason, get better, get stronger, do things you're not comfortable with. We don't want everyone just sitting in their comfort zone, including me. But also there's a sensitivity balance that is essential if we're going to find that line between, pushing but not shoving, retaining but not sleeping. It's a lot, but that's a good example. I think that today's conversation really helped me better crystallize.
Thank you. Krum from Bulgaria, do you have any comments from how things work with your company and your part of the world?
Hi everyone. Here have really great people with good expertise in many areas. My name is Krumpev and I'm from company Vemu. We are producer of food supplements, herbal extracts, phytoadditives, and enzymes. Our company have 30 years history, and we make really good, clear supplements from Bulgarian wild herbs. They are very suitable for sporties, for people who have active manner of life. And also, we make healthy supplements which are very good for pharmacy. We work of completely closed production cycle from the extracts. We have factory for herbal extracts, which we take from Bulgarian wild herbs. We have analysis laboratory and going to final products. So it's not so much company like us can close the process and to guarantee good activity of the products. Most of the food supplements are not real good. They are just people buy because the advertising is big and because they think that will have effects. So we are looking for some distributors in USA, especially. I know that market is very competitive. It's 200 countries. It's a fight for this big market. So it's will take a lot of time to find good partners. But I am very patient, and I'm sure that here in these groups we'll find some friends first to find some friends, and with the time we can go and to find good distributors. Or but I know that in USA now situation is not so good, and but I believe that with time we'll find the people who can understand what we do, and because we have really good potential for American market. We have to find just a good partner.
Okay, Crum, thank you so much. All right, for other people commenting, I really appreciate it. If we know of any distributors, we'll certainly share that with you. Anyone here who has not spoken yet have comments or questions to the three speakers about team retention? Marissa, please go ahead.
Sure. And no specific comment or question, but a thank you for putting together this conversation. Just wanted to I'm in the same space. My business is called Intercultural Talent, precisely because we're equally passionate as the three presenters to support organizations in managing people and working with people. So to Doug's point, we actually specialize in helping global teams, remote teams, and we help professionals navigate the global hyper-connected world that we live in today using tools. In our case, that's what we do, such as Strengths Finder or Clifton Strengths, where people take an assessment and find out their top 5 or top 10 talents, depending if you want to engage in an event. So I just changed my virtual background to show you my top 5 strengths. And it's a very popular tool. It comes from the Silicon Valley, from tech, from big tech, and it has definitely picked up around the world. It's available in over 20 different languages. And it has helped us facilitate customized workshops in over 45 different countries in the last 10 years. And Strengths is just one of the many fantastic tools out there that global teams, international teams can use to navigate the complexities of the global marketplace. And even if it's not a global remote team, here in the US, New York, it's a perfect example of the diversity that we have in the US workforce, and how sometimes, a lot of the issues, that's our angle, of course, that we see at the workforce is lack of intercultural awareness and running into cultural issues with each other. So that is what we try to solve, at the angle that we look at it from, using different tools. Strengths is our premium or cornerstone service. I've been a Gallup certified practitioner for over 10 years, but we also use other frameworks like Toltec wisdom books, like the 4 Agreements of Don Miguel Ruiz. We also use NVC, or Nonviolent Communication, by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And lastly, we use a tool by a fellow member of the Global Chamber, Terry Morrison. His series of books, Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, allows us to customize workshops on the nuts and bolts of international business protocols when people are actually sent in person to an assignment in another country, and to better prepare them to be successful in a different culture that they may not be familiar with, which is what we traditionally did back in the day. With global business was just international trade, right? But nowadays, global business is this hyperconnectivity that we have over the internet that allows us to connect around the world and around sectors. So that's all I wanted to say. It's been incredibly fascinating to listen and absorb. Thank you for having me. And I hope that we can connect on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you very much, Marissa. Christine Courtney is visiting us for the first time, and she had a question for you guys.
Yeah, sorry I was late. Stacy, I'm sorry I missed you. I thought it was really interesting, and just in the little bit I heard, I came in on yours, Carla, and I'm going to look at how we look at our expectations from the very beginning in terms of our staff. We have a very large New York City based part-time sales force, and I was just curious, Minna, I think I'm saying your name right. Am I saying your name right? Something
No,
like
yeah.
Manal, how do you calculate, this might maybe sound stupid, but how do you calculate retention rates? Because I have asked my staff for years, how can we get a real number around retention? And somehow we just never seem to come up with it.
Going to send you that on email so that you have the actual calculation, because it's
Okay.
actually, you can do it quarterly or you can do it annually. So you need to plug in the variability that you want to look at, the time horizon.
Okay.
So that's one. Yeah.
Okay. Because I thought it was great what you said about really looking at retention as the way. And we have like kind of a sweet spot for both part-time and full-time people, but I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, well, actually, maybe I wasn't clear. Actually, retention is a lagging indicator, right?
Right.
So there are companies that really focus on looking at all kinds of past data, which there's nothing wrong with looking at past data, right? It informs you, but
Yeah.
there's also a difference between looking at what has already happened versus looking at data on what's coming at you, right? So there's the backward looking and
Yeah.
the forward looking, and like one of the our tool actually shows you where there's an existing alignment issue between the individual and the organization, where there's an alignment issue between the individual and the team members, and when there's an alignment issue, I'm repeating myself on purpose, with the individual and the manager, because as you probably, Marissa, I think you mentioned Gallup. I mean, if you've seen Gallup data, the number one reason people leave their job is a lack of alignment with their boss. And that doesn't happen 6 months into their job. It doesn't happen a year into it. It doesn't happen at a later time. It's already there. It's just bruised under the surface until it comes to a head. So what our tool does is actually show you where there is misalignment so you can address it.
Got it.
Before it turns into calculating your retention.
Hmm.
So one thing I want to make sure of, I just put connectivity for the three speakers, including, their company address, their LinkedIn. So, I recommend Christine and others who have an interest, maybe you want to schedule some time individually so that you can, discover how you can do that measurement and you can increase retention. But are there any other questions from this group for the speakers? Well, it was a pleasure to have everybody today. We were a smaller group, but we had some really good conversation. Stacy, it looked like to me like you had one last comment. Do you? No? Okay. I thought maybe you had a question. All right. Well, just for everybody's education, Christine, this is recorded, so it will be ready, I think, in about a week, and everyone who's registered will get a copy of it. So I wanted to thank everybody for coming today, and Ruby and Theory and Mohammed, we didn't get any questions from you, giving you one more minute to ask anything at this point.
I want to say I truly enjoyed the section, and thanks to the three ladies for sharing their experience and knowledge with us. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for being such an active participant from Africa. And now I guess you're in Ohio right now. I'm not sure. Are you still here in the US?
I am indeed, and joining from Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Sorry, my bad. Okay. Well, I just wanted to encourage anyone who's on here to know that our next online meeting for the Global Chamber New York City will be April 13th. We have a speaker, Melanie Fox, who's going to continue a conversation about refining your ask and receiving referrals. And then on April 23rd, we'll have our monthly in-person meeting, which we have at CBiz in Manhattan at 730 3rd Avenue. And we're going to focus on other ways to do power support. We're doing a speed networking activity, and then we're going to feature one of our partners, Shota Bagaturia, who's the CEO of a newswire platform called News Out, and his Wall Street New York magazine. And I think Stacy is doing an interview with them soon. So, right? Aren't you going to be doing an interview? Okay. So maybe by that time we'll see your interview. But anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for attending. And if no one has any other comments, I think we're going to close it out. John would love to have you come back. Christine, who left already, I think, would love to come you back as a guest. And we'll talk soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank
All
you.
right, so long.
Everyone, thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming, John.